We're four friends with hot takes on food media.
And we're here to review and recap all kinds of food shows in bite-sized seasons.
Plus, virtual potlucks, cooking adventures, and food memes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
Hey, it's Justine.
And it's me, Meg. Welcome to another episode of Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes. We are back for our final episode on the Great British Bake Off 2022, the reality competition cooking show that crowns Britain's best amateur baker. On the menu for today, we are having our potluck episode. So we made our own signature dishes, taking a recipe from the 2022 season of the Great British Bake Off and putting our own spin on it. Typically, this is a part of the episode where we talk about what we've been cooking recently, but that's the whole thing of the potluck. Yeah. So let's just get into it. Justine, what did you make for our very own GBBO signature challenge?
Okay, so this is like the one time where I'm like, I really hope we didn't make the same thing.
Well, we shall see, huh?
We'll see. Okay, here we go. Here's my reveal. I made a dairy-free and gluten-free tres leches cake.
Whew, oh, so close. Okay.
Okay, got past that. I'm sure as you were, there were a couple things I was deciding between, but yeah, I decided to find a recipe for a tres leches cake and, make my own. I think I had mentioned before, I don't think I've ever had one, and then of course I had been dairy-free for a long time, and most recently gluten-free. The only way I would get this cake into my mouth is to make it myself.
If you want something done right, you have to bake it yourself.
Yes. So I used a recipe from Bakerita.com. I've used a few of her recipes in the past, most notably when I've made tarts. I just think it's a great site to use when you want to bake yummy things, but you have to have them be gluten-free with some other dietary restrictions as well. Like, she makes it really easy.
Before we get into it and before I look at it, can I guess what the 3 non-dairy milks are?
Yes, but you'd be wrong.
Okay, well, I'm going to try anyway. I'm going to guess.
Don't look at the thing. Don't look at the thing.
I'm not. Oat milk, almond milk, and coconut milk.
No. If you do look at this recipe, you will discover it's actually a dos leches cake.
Dos leches cake? Is that allowed?
I'm not sure if it's because of the nature of it being dairy-free or if there's just less options of these types of milks, or actually if she was restricted due to the brand integration, as she's clearly doing a promotion in this recipe.
I see.
She used, and I also used, though I'm not getting paid for it, Nature's Charm products. But they may be the only ones on the market, though, or the most prevalent if you want to use your own vegan evaporated milk and sweetened condensed milk.
Got it.
Which are the 2 of the leches traditionally. Sweetened condensed milk, evaporated milk, and then like a third like heavy...
Cream, usually.
Cream, yeah. There is a third product on there from Nature's Charm, which is their coconut whipping cream, which is just used for the topping, which I have used regular canned coconut milk and powdered sugar to make whipped cream before, but actually I fell in love with this product, and like, again, I'm not getting paid to say this, but
Nature's
it's like it's
Charm, sponsor us.
Yeah, but it's like it's already in the can, and all you have to do is whip it up, and it actually holds really well, and it doesn't like start melting. Like, it's
That's
a really
awesome.
good coconut whipped cream. But anywho, let me share. I've also made a TikTok for you.
Oh my goodness.
Making
Okay,
the
I'm watching the
cake.
TikTok first.
Okay. As you can see, the cake is pretty traditionally made. You've got your dry, you've got your wet. I did use eggs in this recipe, but then after you bake your cake, you have to completely let it cool and then stab it a bunch. Many holes. I used toothpicks. I don't have any skewers. So my qualm was my soaking ingredients were a little thick and didn't permeate the cake so much, so they mostly stayed on top. I think next time I could maybe warm them up some more to get them runnier, or even add in a third leche. I think could do, a little bit of dairy-free milk. You pour that on top of the holes and do a 4-hour soak, which I know the bakers in the tent didn't have
Right.
adequate soaking time.
I just finished the TikTok and I see what you're saying. It doesn't look like it soaks in
Yeah.
very much at all. Was the cake warm or when the soaking happened, or was it supposed to be cooled?
It was cooled, and it was supposed to be cooled. So it had sat for like an hour and a half on the counter, you know. But I think it was just because it was just like a thick, especially I'm going to get them confused, the sweetened condensed milk. It's like almost like a paste, you know.
Yes, I will say, just looking at the photos of the recipe on Bakerita, hers doesn't look very wet either.
Yes.
So I get the feeling that you made it totally correctly. Yours looks a lot like hers. So
Yeah.
I think that maybe maybe her recipe needs to be adjusted a bit.
Yeah, which, as I noted, I think could easily be adjusted to make it a properly wet cake, as she put it. But I will note it was a delicious cake.
Nice.
Yeah, not so much soak through, but still yummy, yummy, yummy. Especially, I think that whipped cream topping I fell in love with. I'm like, oh, now I only want whipped cream on my cakes. It's not something I have had a lot of, actually. I'm used to just like a buttercream or frosting, you know?
Sure.
So I'm going to say it was pretty delicious. I will make it again sometime. Maybe it'll be like my birthday cake every year or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I'm looking to adjust it to get that more liquidy soak. Get it a little wetter.
I think it looks very pretty. I love this idea of the coconut whipped cream. I do love whipped cream on a cake. There's these very nice Japanese cakes that are just a very light white sponge with whipped cream and fresh strawberries. I love whipped cream as a topping on a cake. And I do see that this is a single layer cake, as it should be.
Yes. Do you like my TikTok?
I liked your TikTok very much. I don't know, was there a musical accompaniment? I didn't listen because I wanted to hear you talk.
Exactly, yeah. No music on that one, just for you.
Oh, I feel very special.
Yes, when I post it, sure, yeah, I'll put the latest Taylor Swift or whatever it is.
Oh, wait a second. Do we have a Pod Appétit TikTok, or is this going on your personal channel?
Right now I only have a personal channel, but surprisingly it only features food that I've made that I post. It's a little mix of both. There's nothing of really me personal on there, you know.
So what's your TikTok handle so people can check out your video?
It's JUSTIIIIINE and the number 5.
Justine!
Exactly.
I feel like that's how you have to introduce yourself on the pod now.
It's Justine!
So, seeing as you said you'd have this for your birthday cake, I'm guessing you would make this again?
Oh, yeah. I really liked it. It was very tasty. I'm going to make it again, 100%.
Sweet. I don't know if I can get behind Dos Leches, but this looks better than many of the GBBO entries.
I know. I'm going to fix it, though. I'm going to make it a Tres Leches cake next time.
All right, we are staying in Mexican week. It is Mexican week redemption. So I decided to make conchas.
Oh!
Basically,
Look at us.
Basically, I just thought this would be a good excuse to make conchas because I have been wanting to for a long time now, actually. So this seemed like a good opportunity. If you need a refresher, the concha is the pan dulce. It's a yeasted sweetbread with an enriched dough, so lots of butter in it. It's called a concha because that means shell in Spanish. And this sweetbread looks like a seashell. It has this crackling or kind of streusely topping that crackles and sort of looks like a seashell. So let me share some photos and the recipe I based my conchas off of.
So we did a Mexican week redemption.
Oh, yes, precisely. Here are my photos.
Ooh, those look perfect.
Why, thank you. So I'm calling these my Neapolitan conchas because the topping is chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry.
Oh, I know this recipe.
Yes. And the base recipe I used was a recipe by a friend of the podcast, Rick Martínez. These are his black and white conchas. So since I had never made conchas before, I thought to myself, I can't deviate too far from the recipe because I feel like I would just mess them up. So basically, the biggest difference here was instead of just chocolate and vanilla topping, I did a third topping of strawberry flavor. So I just took the vanilla base and added some ground up freeze-dried strawberry to it to make the strawberry portion. So yeah, there's basically two parts of this recipe. There's the dough, which is the yeasted sweet bread, which is enriched with butter. This had a lot of butter, about 10 tablespoons.
Holy cow.
Yes. And it takes a really long time to knead because you add little chunks of butter, 10 pieces of butter, and you add it and you wait until it's completely incorporated before adding the next piece. So it took about 15 minutes to knead the dough, but the patience was definitely worth it. The dough was delicious. It smelled great as it was proving. It tasted wonderful. And then the topping is traditionally flour, powdered sugar, butter, salt, and then whatever flavors you want to add. I think typically there isn't flavor added, but it's kind of funny because there's a lot of parallels between our two recipes. I also subbed coconut products for dairy products. So in the sweet bread, it called for milk powder, and I subbed in coconut milk powder. And the topping, instead of butter or ghee, I used coconut oil, which was also a substitution that they listed on the recipe. So the end result was a little bit coconutty because there were several coconut ingredients, which I thought was good. I really liked this. The one thing that I was very worried about, I really thought that at one point that this was going to fail. When I was making the topping, there was a moment where I was like, okay, well, what's my backup recipe going to be? Because I didn't know what consistency the topping was supposed to be. And it was very dry and crumbly. And in the recipe, it says roll it into a ball and then smoosh the ball into a disc. And I'm just like, this isn't rolling into a ball. And I really thought smushing it into a disc would just make a whole bunch of crumbs that would never go on top of the rolls. But I guess maybe it was just the pressure of compressing it that it actually did hold its shape in the little disc that goes on top of the roll. So I was pleasantly surprised.
And it looks like the punch out you used had a scalloped edge.
Yes. So it doesn't say to use a punch out. It said to just roll it into a ball and then flatten it. And I think the idea was that if you had a nice round ball, then you would just have a nice round disc to put on top. But since I was having trouble rolling it into a ball, I just kind of had this sort of misshapen wad that I then pressed out. So it had a very uneven edge. So I thought to myself, well, maybe I'll just cookie cutter it out. So those are actually my biscuit cutters is what I used. So that's why it has the little scalloped edge on some of them. And speaking of scallops / shells, one thing I think I could have done better is that you lightly score the top of the topping so that to make the shell design. So that when it expands and cooks in the oven, it gets that crackly shell design. And I could have done more lines. I could have scored more lines in the topping to give it like more of the shell design. I only did 3 lines. I was afraid that it was going to split apart too much. But once I saw the final result, I was like, oh yeah, I could have added more lines. So that's something I would do differently. And I do think I would make these again. I loved the base dough. It tasted so good. I would definitely even adjust this to make it into dinner rolls. I think it could be a very easy conversion to make. Just add less sugar, and I think it would be a very delicious dinner roll. And altogether, this isn't a very sweet bread. It's a very subtle sweetness. And I think in Mexico, you typically eat these for breakfast, so it's not considered a dessert, and I can see why it's not very sweet, which I enjoy. I didn't want something super sweet, so I really liked it.
Nice. I love the Neapolitan theming. I think that's so cute. That gets you a handshake.
It's my little nod to Janusz and his Neapolitan custard gâteau.
Oh, I got that. Yes. I love that. I can definitely see your issues there with the scoring here and there. But I mean, to me, if it tastes yummy, like let's go for it. These look so delicious. I do love the scalloped edging that I can see on the finished product. I think that's so cute.
I do think it turned out well. If I hadn't used the biscuit cutter, I think it would have been a little messy looking.
Can you equate what each part tastes like to something that maybe I'm more familiar with?
Well, so the dough, honestly, imagine a dinner roll, but sweeter. So kind of like a Hawaiian King Hawaiian roll. I was going to say. Yes.
Yeah, like a Hawaiian roll.
I would say somewhere between a King Hawaiian roll and brioche. So that sort of realm. And then the topping, so I've seen the topping for concha described in different ways. And one way I've seen it described is as a streusel. And even though I don't know if I'd entirely agree with that, I can see what they're going with. You know, like it kind of has this texture of streusel. It's crumbly. It is a little bit hard to describe, but I think streusel might be a good jumping off point. But it's not as sweet as streusel. This one was a little bit salty, I thought, which I liked. I thought it added a nice sort of contrast to the sweetness. And even the chocolate part used unsweetened cocoa powder. So the topping is not very sweet. It's just a little bit of flavor, and it's crumbly and crackly. And yeah, I guess streusel-y.
Would you put butter on these?
Gosh, there's so much butter in the dough. And if you go with the base recipe, the topping also has butter instead of coconut oil. But I wouldn't say no to more butter. I really liked eating these warm. So if you ate these warm or if you heated them up, I think adding a dollop of butter it certainly couldn't hurt.
Yum. How did you make this decision to do the conchas?
I think it was just that I enjoy conchas I've had before from Mexican bakeries. And I just like the idea of it, that I would like to try to make it. So it had been in my mind for, I want to say, months. I had been looking at this black and white concha recipe. I was hoping back when we did Sweet Heat that Rick would do a Sweet Heat episode with his concha recipe so that I could have an excuse to make them, but he didn't. So yeah, basically it's just been something I've been sitting on.
Yeah, it's been on your mind for a while.
It has, yeah.
Well, yay. Would you make them again?
I would definitely make these again. You know, they were work, but I think now that I've made it once, it would be less work. And I think I would maybe look up how the topping is supposed to be texture-wise when I'm making it, because I wonder if I did something wrong, or I wonder if the recipe needed to be adjusted, but it did not roll into balls like it said you should be able to. So I don't know. There's a better chance of me just making the roll part of it without the topping. Yeah.
Great job, Meg.
Yeah, you too. 2 successes.
Yeah.
And if you want to make these recipes as well, we'll be sharing them in our show notes. So yeah, make them yourself and let us know what you thought. Okay, well, I guess that's going to do it for the Great British Bake Off.
Get out of here.
Goodbye, GBBO. So let's head on over to our back burner. In the subreddit after the test kitchen, a user posted that Molly Baz sold her old microplane on eBay as a joke, but it sold for $355. So I have 2 thoughts on this. Molly has a stalker. Watch out, Molly. No normal person's going to pay $350 for an old microplane zester. And my second thought is, why don't our fans pay us hundreds of dollars for our old kitchen casts off?
Yeah, I got stuff. You want stuff?
Yeah. I've got some old measuring cups that I need to replace.
Yeah. I got rid of some old sill pats that I really can't use anymore.
Pay us hundreds of dollars. Thank you. Angela To Be Pecked on Twitter shared with us a BBC parody video called Paul Hollywood and Mary Berry Get Hot in the Kitchen.
I just scrubbed this from my mind, Meg.
You will have to reapply the eye bleach, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Angela, and also
Thank you, and how dare you? And also, I thought that I had heard or thought of every double entendre possible for the Great British Bake Off, but apparently there are even more. Soggy bottoms times 1,000. And finally, we have a bit of programming news for this podcast. So we'll be taking a short hiatus, and we will be back in your ears on February 27th. You may have noticed recently that LJ and Amanda haven't been able to join us as often. They are still very much a part of the podcast. We're still pals, and we miss them very much. And they will jump on the mic whenever possible. But due to their availability these days and how that affects the format of the podcast, we think it's time for Pod Appétit to get a little makeover. And hey, we've done it once already. So what's another makeover? In the meantime, if you have any ideas for content you'd like to see on the show, you can let us know by reaching out to us on social media or by sending us an email. And speaking of social media, we want to say thank you as always for leaving comments and reaching out to us. Thanks again to Angela for sharing the Paul Hollywood Mary Berry video.
Thanks.
Yep. Thanks as always to my mom, aka Mary, for chiming in on this season of GBBO. She's got those peanut butter and jelly jokes. And also thank you to Ravenelle for supporting our idea of Paul's favorites and Prue's favorites themed weeks.
We still got it, babe.
We think it's a great idea and that the Bake Off should listen to us.
Yeah.
And okay, I guess we do have one last Bake Off thing. We have some new merch. Yes, we have a GBBO themed design on our Threadless store, podappetit.threadless.com. I want to thank my friend Courtney Phone for creating this design. You can check out more of her work and illustrations at Fanciphone. That's FANCIFONE on Instagram. And also be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Our newsletter already got a makeover.
Yeah.
So go to podappetit.substack.com if you want to subscribe and get news from us at least every other week. And I think that's going to do it. So the next episode will be a little bit of a surprise, right?
Yeah. I mean, I just want to speak on the makeover. I mean, like, who doesn't love a makeover montage? Meg and I are just gonna like try all sorts of different things that we love, and we're so glad that you are here for the journey to see what sticks. We're literally just friends having fun, and the fact that you are all here listening and supporting, like, we love you so much. So yeah, like, you get to see some of Meg's brilliant writing in our newsletter. I may be dropping more videos here and there, maybe on our YouTube shorts, on our possible TikTok, who knows, like, we just want to try so many new things that make us happy, and we're so glad that you're here.
Yeah, we're excited about changes. We're excited to see which direction the podcast goes in, and we're really happy to have you along for the ride. All right.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter and Instagram at pod_appétit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.